Ethan Ward had ridden the same mountain trail since he was a boy. He knew every bend, every stone, and every patch where the earth dipped a little. He was the kind of cowboy who stayed calm in every situation, the kind who did not make noise unless there was a reason. People liked riding with him because he made them feel safe. His horse, Dusty, moved with easy steps, and the saddle squeaked softly under him as they climbed higher along the narrow trail. Behind him rode 3 other people, all enjoying the calm weather and the slow morning breeze that carried the scent of pine and dust. Everything felt normal until Dusty's right hoof hit something under the dirt. It was not a rock, not the usual unevenness of the trail. It was a bump sharp enough to make the horse flinch and step sideways. Ethan tightened the reins at once, sensing something strange. The riders behind him slowed down, surprised by the sudden change in his posture. Ethan never reacted like that unless something was wrong. Claire, who rode just behind him, watched him closely. She had joined his rides a few times before and had never seen him act tense. Ethan's shoulders stiffened and his eyes narrowed as he stared at the ground where Dusty had stepped. He dismounted slowly, almost too carefully, as if he already knew the ground was hiding something important. "You all right, Ethan?" Claire asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Ethan didn't answer. He knelt near the small bump Dusty had stepped on and brushed away the loose dirt with his fingers. The soil moved easily under his hand, and soon a flat surface appeared beneath it. Claire leaned forward in her saddle, trying to see better. The other 2 riders exchanged puzzled looks. Ethan's silence made the air feel heavy. He brushed a little more dirt away until the shape became clearer. It was wood-old, weathered, and smooth. Not something nature had placed there. It was placed by someone. Ethan felt his breath catch for a moment, though he hid it as best he could. His fingers traced the edge of the buried object, and a memory flashed in his mind. One he had not thought about in years. "Cowboy," Claire said again. This time more carefully. "Does that bump in the trail surprise you? Is that why you're acting odd?" Ethan still didn't speak. He stood up slowly and looked around. The trail was quiet, nothing but wind passing through the trees. But something inside him felt shaken. He had walked this trail more times than he could count. He had never seen a wooden piece buried here, and yet the shape felt familiar in a way that made his stomach tighten. He turned to the group and said firmly, "Just a little." They obeyed without arguing. Ethan wasn't a man who gave unnecessary instructions. If he told someone to do something, there was always a reason behind it. When the horses were a safe distance away, he returned to the strange bump on the ground. He brushed off more soil, revealing the curved top of a small wooden chest. His heartbeat grew louder in his ears. He tried to steady himself, but a part of him already knew where this might lead, and it scared him. He had not expected anything from this trail, just a peaceful ride, a calm morning, and soft sunlight through the trees. But life never warned him before it brought back the past. Claire dismounted and stepped closer, though she stayed far enough not to disturb him. "Do you need help?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "It's all right, just give me a moment." He pressed his hands on both sides of the half-buried chest and slowly pulled it out. The dirt clung to the old wood and some parts were cracked, but the moment he wiped the top clean, he froze. The riders behind him watched his expression change. Claire saw the way his jaw tightened and how his eyes lost focus, as if he suddenly drifted years into the past. On the top of the chest were 2 carved letters. W.E.W. Ethan knew those letters better than his own name. They belonged to William Ethan Ward, his father, the same father who had disappeared years ago, the same father whose story never made sense, who left behind only questions, rumors, and a shadow of doubt that had followed Ethan through all his life. Some people said his father ran away. Others said he got caught in a fight. Some said he had been wronged by powerful ranchers who wanted his land. No one knew for certain, and Ethan had stopped looking for answers long ago because searching only brought pain. Now, on a quiet morning, a bump in the trail had brought everything back. He swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. He didn't want the others to see the storm inside him. He lifted the chest carefully, checking if the lock was broken. It wasn't locked at all. It had been closed gently, as if someone had not wanted to hide it forever, to protect it from the weather. Claire walked closer and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Ethan, is it something important?" His voice came out low. "I think it belonged to my father." The other two riders grew silent. They didn't know Ethan well, but they understood what those words meant to him. Ethan rarely spoke about his father. When he did, the conversation always ended quickly because the pain was still there. Even after all these years, Ethan sat on his heels and slowly lifted the lid. Inside the chest, the items were arranged with care. A folded cloth, yellowed with age, wrapped something firm. Next to it were paper's old letters, edges worn. There was also a badge, rusted but still recognizable. Ethan picked it up with both hands. The badge had once belonged to his father when he served as a deputy. Ethan stared at it for a long time. He could almost feel the weight of the past pressing on him. He remembered being a young boy watching his father polish this badge in the evenings. While telling him stories about the ranch, the land, and the people he tried to help, after his father disappeared, rumors spread that he had betrayed the law or done something wrong. Those whispers had hurt Ethan for years. Now he wondered if the truth had always been hidden in this box. He unwrapped the cloth next. Inside it was a set of letters tied together with a thin string. The letters were addressed to him, to my son Ethan. The writing was familiar, warm, and strong. The kind of handwriting he had seen growing up. He couldn't open them yet. His hands shook slightly, and he didn't trust himself not to break down. He placed the letters gently back inside for the moment. Then there was the map. A hand-drawn map of the area around their ranch. The lines were faint but readable. A small red mark circled a spot near a canyon, a place Ethan hadn't visited since he was a child. His father had taken him there once, telling him it was a special place. Ethan couldn't remember much else. Claire crouched beside him. "Ethan, this isn't just a box. This is something he wanted you to find." Ethan nodded slowly. Maybe he hid it because he had no choice. He closed the chest carefully and held it against his knee. The world felt quieter now. Even the wind seemed to slow down. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something heavy shift inside him, something like hope, but mixed with fear. He didn't know what the map would lead him to. He didn't know what the letters would say. But he knew one thing. He couldn't ignore this. The riders remained silent, giving him space. Finally, Claire spoke gently. "We can head back whenever you're ready." Ethan took a deep breath. "Yeah, let's go back." He lifted the chest, stood up, and walked to Dusty. The horse gave a soft snort, almost sensing the weight Ethan carried. Ethan tied the chest securely to his saddle and mounted up. As they turned back down the trail, Ethan glanced once more at the spot where Dusty had stepped on the bump. A small bump hidden under the dirt had changed the whole direction of his day, maybe even his life, as they rode back in silence. Ethan kept one hand on the chest. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing. Some bumps in the trail were not accidents. Some were signs. And this one felt like his father had left it for him long ago. Waiting patiently for the day, Ethan would finally be ready to see it. Ethan barely spoke on the way back to the ranch. The wooden chest tied to the side of his saddle felt heavier than anything he had ever carried, even though it was small. Dusty walked with careful steps, as if the horse also sensed that the day had changed in a serious way. The other riders kept a respectful distance behind him, allowing him to move at his own pace, giving him quiet. Claire stayed closest, not saying much, but her presence made the long trail back feel a little less lonely. When they reached the open valley near the ranch, the afternoon sun was already beginning to soften. Long shadows stretched across the dry grass, and cattle grazed near the fences. Everything looked normal, peaceful, almost too calm compared to the storm that had started inside Ethan's mind. He stopped his horse near the first water trough, and finally exhaled, as if he had been holding his breath for the entire ride back. "You want me to take the others inside?" Claire asked gently. Ethan nodded. "Please, I'll join you all later." Claire guided the group back toward the stable entrance, while Ethan stayed behind. He untied the chest from Dusty's saddle and set it carefully on a wooden bench. Dusty nudged his shoulder, sensing something unusual. Ethan stroked the horse's neck to reassure him. I whispered, "A soft good boy," before stepping back and sitting down in front of the chest. For several minutes, he just stared at it. The carved initials W seemed to stare back, almost alive under the warm sunlight. The letters brought back memories he had tried to forget. His father lifting him onto a horse for the first time, teaching him how to tie a rope, pointing at distant mountains and saying every land had a story, every trail had a secret. But those memories also carried questions. Why did his father disappear? Why did he leave things unfinished? Why hide a box in the mountains instead of giving it to his own family? Ethan rubbed his hands slowly across his face. He felt tired, not in a physical way, but in a deep, heavy way that made his chest tighten. He reached forward and opened the chest again. The letters lay there, tied neatly. The badge glinted faintly under the sunlight. The cloth-wrapped items were still exactly as before, and the map rested on top, almost inviting him to pick it up again. Ethan lifted the map and studied it with more focus now. The canyon marked with the red circle was not far, maybe a few hours' ride. It was a place he had not visited since he was very young. He remembered his father taking him there once, telling him they were going to check the water sources and look at some special plants that only grew near the canyon walls. Ethan remembered thinking the canyon looked peaceful and hidden. It's like a secret place the world forgot. Maybe that was why his father chose it. Claire returned after a few minutes, walking quietly toward him. "The others have gone home," she said softly. "I told them you'd talk to them tomorrow." "Thanks," he replied. She stayed silent, waiting for him to say more. Claire wasn't someone who pushed people to open up. She had grown up around ranchers and cowboys her whole life. She knew people carried stories they didn't always want to share, and she respected that. After a while, Ethan held up the map. "This spot," he said, "and my father marked it for a reason." Claire came closer and studied it with him. "Do you know the place?" He nodded slowly. "A little. But I don't know why he wanted me to see it." "What do you think is there?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But whatever it is, he wanted me to find it someday." Claire watched him quietly and then asked, "Are you going to follow the map?" Ethan looked at the chest again. He felt the weight of years pressing on him. "I think I have to. If I don't, I'll never know the truth. I've lived with questions for too long." Claire nodded. "I'll go with you." Ethan didn't argue. Something about today made him realize that facing the unknown alone wasn't always the strongest choice. Sometimes sharing the trail made the journey easier. The sun was now touching the top of the hills, turning the sky into shades of gold and orange. Ethan knew the canyon trip would take hours and that they should not go at night. It was safer to rest and leave early in the morning. So Ethan locked the chest in a small room near the barn, a place where he kept tools and old saddles. He wanted to keep the chest close, where he could reach it again as soon as dawn arrived. That night, Ethan found sleep difficult. He lay awake, on his bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the ranch settling into quiet darkness. Crickets chirped, a distant owl hooted, and the wind moved slowly through the trees. All the calm sounds of nighttime did nothing to quiet his thoughts. He kept thinking about the letters. He hadn't opened them yet, didn't know if he should read them now or after visiting the canyon. His father had written them for him. There was no doubt about that, but the timing of reading them mattered. What if the letters explained everything? What if the canyon only held more pain? Or what if the canyon held answers the letters didn't? Explain? He turned on his side and closed his eyes, trying to choose. After a long moment, he decided he would follow the map first. Something inside him felt that the order mattered. His father must have had a reason for hiding the chest instead of delivering the letters directly. Maybe the canyon was the key to understanding everything written inside the letters. Morning finally arrived, and Ethan felt a mix of nerves and determination. He met Claire near the barn. She already had her horse saddled and prepared. Her calm smile made him feel a little more grounded. "You ready?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be." He brought the map, rolled it carefully, and placed it in a small leather pouch tied to his saddle. He checked the sky, clear and bright, perfect for the long ride. The chest remained locked safely in the barn. He felt better knowing it would stay clean and untouched until his return. Ethan and Claire rode out of the ranch slowly, following the open fields, before turning toward the rocky terrain that led to the canyon. As they moved farther from home, the land changed. The grass became shorter, the air grew warmer. The terrain began to tilt into rises and dips. The trail narrowed in places, widened in others, and sometimes disappeared under loose stones, forcing them to ride carefully. For an hour, they rode in silence, letting the quiet of the land fill the space between them. Then Claire spoke softly. "You okay?" "Yeah," he said, though his voice carried a hint of strain. "Just thinking about your father, about everything. Strange. Yesterday morning, I didn't expect any of this. I thought it would just be another ride." "Life changes like that," she replied. "Sometimes in a moment." Ethan nodded. He knew she was right. As they approached the canyon area, the land offered small clues that triggered Ethan's memory of a leaning tree he had climbed once. A group of rocks shaped like a sleeping animal, a narrow dip in the land where he and his father had taken shelter during a sudden rain many years ago. Each site brought back a different memory, small and distant, but still warm. "My father loved this place," Ethan said quietly. "He said the canyon had a calm spirit." Claire smiled. "Your father sounded like a good man." "He was." Ethan's voice softened. "I just wish I knew why he left the way he did." They reached the entrance of the canyon by early afternoon. The tall rock walls rose on both sides like silent guardians. The air grew cooler inside the canyon, and the sunlight reached them in thin strips through the high cliffs. The canyon floor was covered with soft sand, scattered stones, and small plants growing bravely through the cracks. Ethan slowed Dusty and pulled out the map. "The spot should be somewhere near the middle," he said. They rode deeper into the canyon until the map indicated they were close. Ethan stopped his horse and scanned the surroundings. A pair of large stones leaned against each other, creating a narrow wedge, most like a natural hiding place. "That might be it," Claire whispered. Ethan dismounted, his hands trembling slightly. Claire followed. Together they walked toward the stones. The quiet of the canyon made the moment feel sacred, as if the land itself knew. They were searching for something important. Ethan knelt and looked into the wedge between the rocks, his breath caught. Hidden between the stones was a small metal box, coated with dust but still intact. It looked old, but not broken. Not forgotten. Carefully placed with purpose, Ethan reached in slowly and lifted the box out. It felt cold, even under the warm sunlight. Claire watched him with gentle eyes, knowing this moment meant more to him than words could describe. Ethan took a deep breath and opened the box. Inside were items arranged with the same careful order as the chest. A few more letters folded, paper, and a small wooden piece with his father's initials carved into it. These were pieces of a story his father had never been able to finish sharing. Ethan's heart tightened. This was no accident. His father had planned for Ethan to find this place someday, and Ethan finally understood that the journey was only beginning. Ethan held the small metal box in his hands, standing between the tall canyon walls that echoed every soft breath he took. The air felt still, almost respectful, as if the canyon understood the importance of what he had discovered. Claire stood beside him quietly, watching him with patience and understanding. She knew this moment wasn't something she could rush or interrupt. She simply waited, giving him space to feel whatever he needed to feel. Ethan opened the box slowly. Inside were several folded papers, carefully arranged as if placed by someone who wanted them to be found exactly like this. There was another wooden piece with the same familiar initials carved at the top. W.E.W. Seeing his father's initials again made Ethan's chest tighten. It felt like he was hearing his father's voice from far away. Calling him back to a time when things were simple, he removed the first folded paper. The edges were soft and worn, showing age and travel. He opened it gently, afraid the paper might tear if he moved too quickly. Claire stepped slightly closer so she could read if he chose to share, but she didn't push. The paper held a short message written in his father's handwriting. Ethan recognized the familiar curves of each letter. If you found this, then I hoped you would one day follow the map. The truth may hurt, but not knowing will hurt more. Be strong, son. The message was simple but heavy. Ethan swallowed as his eyes moved slowly down the faded ink. His father didn't write long emotional words. He wrote like a man who had lived a hard life and needed to speak in the fewest words possible. Ethan lifted his eyes and looked at Claire. He wanted me to find this, he whispered. Claire nodded gently. He did. He wanted you to know the truth when the time was right. Ethan nodded slowly. He placed the first paper aside and picked up the second one. This one was a small hand-drawn map, similar to the one in the wooden chest, but more detailed. It showed the canyon, the ranch land, and several marked points. One point circled in deep red was labeled Final Place. Another was marked near the ranch river. A third was drawn close to the forest line. Ethan frowned. There are more places. Claire leaned closer. It looks like he wanted you to see all of them. Ethan studied the map for a long time. The land he had lived on his whole life had always seemed ordinary to him. He never imagined that his father had been creating a trail of hidden messages across it, each one left with purpose. He placed the map gently inside his saddlebag. Something inside him felt stronger, no determined. He reached for the last item in the box, a folded letter addressed to him. The handwriting was shaky, as if written quickly or during a difficult moment. Ethan hesitated. The letter felt important, heavier than the rest. Claire touched his arm softly. It's okay. Take your time. Ethan took a deep breath and opened the letter. My son, if you are reading this, then I did not get the chance to say what I needed to say in person. There were things happening that I could not speak about. I was trying to protect you and your mother from the trouble that was coming. Some people wanted our land. Some wanted my badge. They wanted me gone. I had to hide the truth so it would not fall into the wrong hands. I hoped you would be strong enough to follow the signs when you were ready. Ethan's throat tightened. He blinked slowly, trying to keep his emotions steady. You may hear stories about me. Some of them will not be kind. Do not believe them. I never betrayed anyone. I never gave up. I only tried to keep our family safe. The places I marked will help you understand everything. When you follow all of them, you will know what happened to me. And you will know I never left you without a reason. Ethan's eyes slowly traced the last line. Be brave, Ethan. You have my heart, my strength, and my hope. Follow the truth. Ethan lowered the letter. His hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, but from the weight of finally hearing his father's voice after so many years of silence. It felt like the message had traveled across time, crossing hardship and distance. Just to reach him, Claire placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. He loved you, Ethan. He never stopped. Ethan nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. He carefully folded the letter and placed it back inside the metal box. His father's words echoed in his heart, warming places that had been cold and unanswered for too long. He stood up slowly and looked around the canyon. The tall walls seemed to watch him, as if guarding the secrets his father had hidden. Ethan closed the metal box and held it tightly. We have to visit the other places, he said firmly. Claire smiled softly. I'm with you. They walked back to their horses and mounted up. The canyon had given them something important, something that had changed the path of the day. Ethan took one last look at the rocks and then guided Dusty toward the canyon entrance. The ride back felt quieter, more thoughtful, as if the land was giving him room to process everything. When they returned to the ranch, the sky was already turning warm with late afternoon light. Ethan carried the metal box inside and set it on the same bench where the wooden chest had rested. He stood there for a long moment, thinking about his father's words again and again. Claire stood nearby but didn't interrupt. She simply waited, knowing Ethan's mind was full of many things at once. After some time, Ethan turned to her. Thank you for coming with me. You don't have to thank me, she said softly. You shouldn't have had to face all that alone. Ethan nodded. He felt grateful in a way he couldn't express through words. The next morning, Ethan woke with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. He studied the detailed map his father had left. The next marked spot was near the river that flowed behind the ranch. It wasn't far. He saddled Dusty quickly, and Claire approached with her horse ready too. "You're coming again?" Ethan asked. "Of course," she answered simply, as if it was never a question. They rode to the river. The water moved gently under the early morning sun. Birds flew across the sky, and the ranch looked peaceful behind them. They searched along the riverbank until Ethan saw a small, flat stone that looked out of place. Under it, there was another metal container. Inside this one was a set of old land records, proving that his father had been forced into signing something unfair, but had refused to accept it. Ethan felt something inside him settle. Piece by piece, the story was coming together. The final marked spot on the map was a small clearing near the forest. They rode there by noon, following a narrow path through the trees. The air felt warm and calm. Birds sang softly, and sunlight filtered through the leaves. In the clearing, they found the last item, another letter. This one shorter than the others. "If you found every place, then you now know the truth. People may say things about me, but you know my side now. Please take care of the ranch. Do not let anyone take what belongs to our family. And remember, I was always proud of you." Ethan read the letter twice, then held it close to his chest for a moment. His father's words wrapped around him like a warm coat. All the confusion, all the pain of not knowing, all the years of wonderings, slowly began to fade. Claire watched him carefully. "How do you feel?" she asked softly. Ethan breathed deeply. "Lighter," he said. "Like something heavy finally left my shoulders." "You deserved answers," she replied. Ethan looked around the quiet clearing. He felt connected to the land in a new way, as if he finally understood the story written in its trails, hills, and hidden places. His father hadn't abandoned him. He had protected him, and he had left him clues, trusting that one day Ethan would be strong enough to follow them. As they rode back to the ranch, Claire glanced at him. "What will you do now?" Ethan smiled gently, the kind of smile that came from deep inside, from peace. "Now," he said, "I take care of our ranch, and I honor my father's name." Claire nodded. "You're a good man, Ethan." He looked at the land stretching before them, the ranch his father loved, trails he knew by heart, the mountains in the distance. Everything seemed brighter now, clearer. The bump in the trail had not been an accident. It had been the first step of a journey he was always meant to take. As they reached the ranch gates, Ethan felt a sense of completion. He had followed the map. He had found the truth. And he finally understood the message his father had left him, not just in letters, but in the land itself. Some trails lead to answers. Some trails lead to healing, and some trails begin with a simple bump that changes everything.